30 years from now. I guess I should keep studying my peers for now. Should I make a dance and snap thumbs? Fast hi-hats, 808 back drums. Are we selling our souls for 32 pieces of gold? If it's lacking in soul, how can it remain whole? We make music for stripper poles, but no music to pay. That's the short-term money that we put in the bank. But the drama's going backwards. I see devolution instead of evolution. This is soul prostitution. The children are fumbling. Even got the elders encouraging, mumbling, watching and stumbling. Day after day is so humbling. Meanwhile, our stock has been plummeting, and they telling me I need to sound like these other niggas. Grown ass men trying to sound like the younger niggas used to have balance. Back in the days, we had talent. Trying to be original was the challenge. Now all these niggas sound the same, and all the beats sound the same. Same cadence, same drums, all that shit sound the same. 20 niggas trying to sound like Future, and I love rockin' Future, but that's not so Future. Then you niggas need a different producer. Hope that bullshit crash your computer. Ain't nothing cool about being a loser. Please stop encouraging brothers to be junkies. Please stop encouraging brothers to be flunkies. They don't want to see y'all travel and see countries. They just want to see y'all sit and be flunkies. The reality we making stems from the music we be making. You can't be one with God and do the work of Satan. Laws of nature get violated. My people get annihilated. How long can we tolerate it? The change is gonna come, and I gotta make it. I'd rather make you think than to make you dance. Even if I flop, still gotta take the chance. I love to see you change more than money change your hands. Cause your future's worth more than the big events. The bigger man gotta wear the bigger pants. I put right first like a southpaw, so I gotta take a different stance. That's real.
Peace, family. Peace to the east, the west, the north, and the south. This is Flow Room coming to you today on my 20th day of my nano water fast. Yes, I'm still here. I haven't melted away. And I actually got a chance to watch EndGame last night, Friday. So I thought I'd come in and do a breakdown. It was an incredible movie. Now, if you have not seen the movie, I would suggest this will be a what is it called? What do you guys call it? Like it'll break. You don't want to hear about it unless you've gone to see it. So make sure. I appreciate it. A spoiler. Thank you. It'll be a spoiler. So don't stay here if you haven't seen the movie yet, or unless you don't care. So check on in again. It was really difficult for Flurburn to go to movies without snacking. I think that was. Somebody asked me how challenging a water fast is when this is 20 days in. I said it wasn't hard until I had to sit in a 3-hour movie. Hey, Yaffy, a 3-hour movie without having any snacks. That to me was the most torturous out of the whole fast. Like I remember someone asking me this morning, I was like, how's the fast going? I was like, I was good until I went to the movies. And I was like, you want to talk about self-restraint? All you hear is chewing, people smacking, popcorn, smell everything, hot dogs, hamburger. They got everything in there, nachos, guacamole, everything. Everything was up in that piece. But I, like I said, I'm in it to win it. I'm going on a 30 days. I got 10 days left. So it's beautiful, and it's able for me to discern and take notes on these movies with such mastery. So best 3 hours not going to the restroom. Yeah, I didn't have to tinkle during the whole movie. Yeah. I'm proud of myself. If anybody can be proud of me, it's definitely myself. So anyway, I'm going to get into the movie. It was phenomenal. Very good movie. Remember, I think many of you remember last year, Hold on. I'm chewing like these chicles to keep me I don't want to be rude and chew it while I'm talking to you fine people. So so last night I ended up going to see now remember previous to this, I think you have a reminder that I saw Captain Marvel before this. So I had a chance to see Captain Marvel. Many of you remember last year, the Infinity Wars, I was pissed off. I think you remember because it was during the Rainbow event and I hadn't known that all of these rainbow events with the people turning to dust was an aspect of what I actually experienced when I experienced this a wave, the event last year. So watching the movie last year, I totally was pissed off because the ending wasn't reminiscent of what I know to be that was going to occur for the event. So, I think many of you remember, I was like, I did not like the end of the movie last year. For those who are Marvel and DC comic and people who had read the books in the series, they knew what was going to happen. I hadn't any clue. I walked in there and I was highly, highly upset at the end last year with all the characters disappearing. So let's get into the movies again. This will be a spoiler for anyone. If you have not seen the movie, do not listen to my detail on it because it's very important that you see it without hearing about it first. It really will mess up your perspective because I think you have to go in there with a clean slate, not knowing anything. It's best for someone like me who doesn't really have any expectations. I just went in there like, yo, fix what you did last year to me. Okay, so there's a lot going on in the movie. Let's start off. I took notes, family, and look at my crazy notes. I write like a gremlin. So I took mad notes because I'm fasting. Big up to Elle Summers. That was Elle Summers' joint on Summer Solstice. That's Elle Summers, one of our sun stars on here. I took notes for this movie, so you'll be very, very pleased that I have a good arrangement so we can stay on point. So, because I like to sidebar all through my videos. So this time, hopefully, I'll stay focused a little better. Okay, so let's start into the movie. So one thing I noticed, listen, I went to Universal Studios to go to movies. All movie theaters were booked. I didn't even realize how many people had booked their tickets like a month ahead of time because we have a movie theater over here, which is really nice. It's comfy, cozy. You got the recliner chairs. You feel like you're in your own living room. Those were all booked. So Flurboon had to go Ghetto Fabulous last night. So I went Ghetto Fabulous. And I ended up going with my little people because those are my little people are my crew. My crew is my little ones. So I brought them with me. They were excited. They were the ones who told me it was coming about. So we ended up going to Universal Studios. Big up to Universal Studios. It was packed. Listen, family, if you've ever been to Universal Studios just on a regular summer day, it's crowded. But last night, thank goodness, I had booked my tickets ahead of time and left early. So we ended up going into the movie theaters roughly around an hour previous to the movies. Parking and everything was fine. And I mean, after we went to the 7:30 movie afterwards, I mean, I've never seen a line so long since Star Wars when I was a child, and it wasn't even that long. So, okay, you already watched the videos? Okay, so for everyone going, let's kick off the movie. Sat down, Flurboon's in a fast, had to listen to all the crackle, snap, crackle pops during the whole movie, smelling all kinds of deliciousness while I'm sitting here drinking my fabulous water like this. This is so good. Let's get it in. So we start off the movie. It kicks off basically showing the different characters. If you remember Infinity Wars, the Infinity Wars, you remember it ended on Thanos basically getting the Infinity Stones, killing off many of the characters. When he got the Infinity Stones and put it in his glove that was purposefully engineered for his DNA and for his body structure. He put it on and he was able to basically disintegrate or decimate half the population, including half of the Avenger crew. We start off there, and what you'll notice when we start off, you see some of the characters show up. You still see Iron Man, who's actually stuck in space with Nebula. And he's basically, remember, they're caught out there because they went outside of the atmosphere, and that's why they were able to survive the decimation and avoid being disintegrated during that whole process of clearing that Thanos did as a result of his own sociopathic, diabolical nature. Doesn't he sound like the government? Thanos is a representation of what we consider to be the corporate entity, the corporate entities that are ruling over our, governmental establishments. He represents those who see us as useless eaters and feel as if our presence is quickly, depreciating the earth. So they feel like most of the populace would be better appreciated if they weren't even around anymore. That's basically what Thanos represents. Thanos represents that aspect, what I personally think is an aspect of a corporate America, corporate entities representing those who are overseeing the system and driving it for their own deeds. Okay, so he removed 50% of the population, including those of the Avengers. So you see, Iron Man up there with Nebulous. Nebulous is just that. She is so unremoved. She is so cold and unfeeling, but basically, evolving in her own state of being. And I also, take in a little bit of that transhumanism agenda playing in the movie as well, with getting people used to having these far removed robotoids, or people who are mixed with a lot of biobots, getting us adjusted to being accustomed to these type of beings and interacting with them a little more normally to allow for that agenda to play through. So I have to put in that agenda as well, because Nebulous and getting acclimated to Nebulous and her personality and kind of having a human interact with a being that is absolutely removed from human emotions is basically getting you used to the ideas. And why I say it's an agenda, because you see a host of movies that kind of bring in, especially Evita. I think it was Evita. There was another movie before then, basically transference of consciousness of people into mechanics. It's all that I consider a transhumanism agenda that played out on a Getty Up. So you see them on a ship, basically, Iron Man is feeling defeatist. He's on his craft. He can't move. He basically has enough oxygen to sustain himself for maybe a couple hours. And it's kind of sad at the beginning. But what you see is, at the end of his rope, when you feel like there is no more hope, of course, you see Captain Marvel show up. Now, remember, family, I'm going to segue into Captain Marvel. Many of you didn't get a chance to see Captain Marvel. I told you, if you want to see all kinds of reptilians, shapeshifters, that is the movie to see. So I'm going to segue into that, because we have to bring in Captain Marvel. She is a new character. It also brings in this dynamic of bringing back the divine feminine online, the strong, feminine, a warrioress that comes into play, that is now being brought in at a time where there's this defeatist kind of mode where the patriarchy is lost to its own failing, because it's allowed for this type of this type of being Thanos to flourish and gain power over the populace, and again, disseminating of 50% of the population. So we go into Captain Marvel. Now, she's considered to be the most powerful of all the super characters. Now, if you watch Captain Marvel, and I will touch on that. Hey, Elle Summers, I was just playing your song. If you got a chance to watch Captain Marvel, you have to see that movie. I thought that movie was the bomb.com, and I didn't expect it. I wanted to just see it because I knew it would be a prequel to what's going to happen, kind of like she was going to be segued into EndGame. So we watched Captain Marvel. It is a female, which is interesting, even though she has a male, kind of the vibration of her name is very male, which is very, I think that in itself is intriguing. So we have Captain Marvel. Remember when she was some sort of like a super soldier. Now, many of you who come from the ET community know we talk about super soldiers. Super soldiers are those beings, people, humans that are genetically homogenized with super intelligence or super abilities, super physical abilities. The government generally tends to make these. They utilize children that are usually discarded in society, orphan children, children that are usually children that would not be looked after or sought after. So Super Soldier Program has been part of the dynamics of the ET Intel list. If you don't know, you should watch Max Spears. Max Spears goes onto it. You know, you get a lot of, you can always look into that yourself on YouTube. There's a host of different super soldiers. They talk about the interloping of technology and the schematics of ET interaction with the governments. It's really fascinating. You should really get into it. So you get into Captain Marvel. She's coming to, again, if you watch the Captain Marvel movie, which you should, because if you want to see reptilians as they are, you see a whole bunch of shapeshifters. And basically she's coming in a world where she was created as a super soldier, but she was created as being a super soldier by extraterrestrials called the Skrulls. Now, the Skrulls are shape-shifting reptilians, and also there's another group called the Kree. Now, if you get a chance to watch it, it is so good. I mean, the action-packed, shape-shifting reptilians, you get to see the whole agenda. It was off the chain. So get a chance to see that. Again, you know, in that movie, what you'll notice is she was utilized. Now, this is important because I think a lot of times we don't realize she was created to be a super intelligence for an opposition ET group. Listen again. Captain Marvel was created. She was homogenized to be the super intelligence of the opposition group, even though she thought, because she had been pre-programmed and she had been mind controlled, and her whole mindset was set to believing that these beings who saved her, called the Skrulls, were the good guys, and that they were there to assist her, and you know, they were working against these nefarious other ET groups that were trying to destroy all of humanity and other groups of you know, other planets. But it really was that she was planted as a spy to spy on the opposition. Okay, so if you get a chance to watch, it was amazing. Go watch, definitely watch. If you didn't see Avengers now, the EndGame, please go and watch Captain Marvel. And you know, I never really give a 10 thumbs up. I've got to give a 10 plus thumbs up to Captain Marvel. They really superseded my expectations. And again, yes, I'm part of the ET community. Yes, I personally know that reptilians exist. So that does play into why I would probably be more fascinated by this. But that movie was thebomb.com. Okay, so we have her, let's go back into EndGame. We have her go up, she's saving, you know, she comes up and all of a sudden, you know, Iron Man is at the end, no more oxygen. He's just like, he's just gonna leave it like this is the end. I guess this is how I'm gonna rock out. And as his eyes are closed, he feels a luminous glow on him. And then you see Captain Marvel show up outside. I think the whole crowd in the movie theater was like in like awe, like, oh yes, this is that moment when we're going to kick off the movie. She shows up, Illuminous, because remember at the end of Captain Marvel, she went out into the galaxy to go help other life forms, which is so interesting because she falls upon, how ironic, she falls upon Iron Man and Nebulous up and Oblivion out in the solar system. So that kicks off the movie, shows up. Am I glitching? Hold on. Yeah, right, Legatus. Oh, that was amazing. Like we were like, yes, yes. Okay, so bring her back to the establishment where you see some of the remaining, you know, Avengers who are actually still coexisting, and they're in a defeatist mood. You have obviously Iron Man is still existing. You have the Hulk, who's now basically he has migrated the aspect of his hostile self. Now, this gets very important, and I want to bring this into perspective. As we see him come upon Hulk wearing his glasses and a shirt, and he's green, because remember, the Hulk had two totally different personalities that were compartmentalized, meaning that there was David Banner, who was a scientist. He was separate from the Hulk, and when he turned into the Hulk, he became more impulsive. He became more of a monster, in so to speak, more impulsive, more barbarian-like, more savage, and that was a separate part of his personality. Yes, yin and yang. But what's interesting, and this is very important because this movie goes a lot into that. That's why you'll see the title of my feedback on EndGame is Return to 0 Point. you'll see that he merges the two aspects of himself, the yin and the yang, whereas before he would live cohesively in separate parts of himself, compartmentalize each aspect of his archetype, and he would live that way until one was, for some reason, it was an outer catalyst that would bring about the Hulk, the savage, the beast, and he was able to incorporate the two. And he was coexisting in a way that allowed for him to be more humane, more civil amongst the populace without that impulsivity. But he merged the two, which he hadn't been before. So we're going to get into that because that's very important, because that has to do with the premise of the entirety of this movie and with the Gemini man. What is it? Gemini something coming up, which I'm going to break down, because the Gemini with Will Smith coming up, this all has to do with duality, really the multiverse, the collapse of all timelines, and the merging of each of the aspects of ourselves, incorporating them in interlapping the few of every aspect of ourselves into ourselves. Okay. So we're going to get into that too. So, okay. So we have this, he comes, he sees, a defeatist mode with all of the, the different Avengers. Then they're meeting, what's her name? Captain Marvel for the first time. They're like, where have you been? When we needed you, we would have needed you. And she was like, I didn't know. She wasn't really down with them at that point. So she didn't really have any idea of what actually took place. So we're going to get in. I don't want to go into each aspect of the movie because I don't want to break it down to the point where we're kind of like segueing into each scene, because it would be too monotonous. And I want to get to the points. What we notice is that there's a representation of a timeline. Where Thanos has actually decimated 50% of the population. We have the Avengers, who normally are the strongest, the most amazing superheroes, that are now scattered and heartbroken and feeling the lack of their strength and falling victim to their own dark shadow aspect of themselves. Okay, so they've kind of became monotonous in their life and defeatist in the way that they even perceive the aspect of who and what they are, not having so much confidence in their abilities anymore, especially losing to that degree. Okay, so we have them going along and living life and da 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 da. So now we have, all of a sudden, in a locker room somewhere in, I think it was San Francisco, in an abandoned warehouse, we have all of a sudden what looks like a Tetris or a Tesseract or a time machine that has been activated by a rat on the window of a van, which is interesting because that symbolizes that rat activating a portal to open is very symbolic. Now, rats are normally denoted to be the scum of the earth, disease-ridden, but on the higher level, and in Chinese astrology, the rat represents knowledge and wisdom, because the rat is one of the most versatile and smartest of all of the rodent family. It has an ability to learn and to remember and to be able to overcome obstacles very easily, which is interesting, because the rat was the one who activated this aspect of a time machine that was dormant in the back of a van. And lo and behold, and rats are very resourceful. Okay, so this rat, okay, which I denote the rat is a representation of consciousness, the subconsciousness, like the underground of consciousness, becoming aware of its existence and becoming aware of its potentiality. This is what the rat represented to me. Represented a aspect of a dormancy that has been fully awakened and unknowingly is starting to collect data to release its potentiality. And in that potentiality, it releases hope, which comes Ant-Man. Okay. And Ant-Man in itself, like I said, ants are very durable. We bring up rodents and insects, the things on this earth plane that are least respected and most detested by humanity. The two things that most people detest are usually rodents and insects. And it's interesting that the hope that came from humanity was the two very things that has been basically the things that most haven't realized are the necessities of being of having respect or honor for and not really putting things aside that would be useful to us or could be we should respect aspects of those types of what you consider to be archetypes or animals or insects that we normally don't even talk about or even respect. Okay, so we had the rat who that potentiality opened up unknowingly. That's consciousness, unknowing consciousness, like an underground of consciousness, because remember, rats like to scurry underneath the ground in the tunnels, opened up a potentiality, and here comes, bam, Ant-Man, pops out of left field, okay? So Ant-Man, who was not here during the whole apocalyptic Thanos takeover, ended up getting stuck in the quantum realm. Now, this is when we're going to get into a very... this is when we're going to get into some really phenomenal aspects of what this movie in totality really had to do with. So we have the Ant-Man who pops out of a van, a really groovy, it looks like a 70s van, stuck in like a nonchalant storage area in a bin in San Francisco. San Francisco, the Bay Area, the sunny state. This is where he was stuck. He was popped out of the quantum realm, unbeknown to him, not knowing what happened because, okay, now we're going to get into this. I hope I can do this now. Okay, so when we talk about quantum physics and quantum realities and quantum entanglement, okay, so I will give you my perspective in the way that I understand it, is he was stuck in a quantum field, which basically placed him in a time, encapsulated him in a time bubble, which basically disallows for what we perceive to be time on our earth plane, because remember, we require time in order to solidify physicality in this earth plane. Whereas in the higher realms, many of you visit the etheric realms or some of the 5D plus arenas and dimensions, time isn't the same construct. It is made up of a different ionosphere, which disallows for time to be perceived in the way that we would perceive it here, meaning that once you enter into the quantum realities, you generally are small. So generally, when you go up in there, sometimes you're small. It's like a minuscule molecule that is basically undetectable except by some high field mechanics that allow for or microscopic equipment that allows for the perception of this molecule, which you would not even see if you saw it in front of your eyes. It wouldn't exist. That's why many of the other planes of dimensions, even though they coexist with us or overlapping, our perception, we're unable to perceive them based on the fact that the way that they show up in a molecule, in a way that quantum fields show up, would small-in the molecule so much so it would seem like it's invisible to the naked eye of a person, okay? So he's stuck in the quantum realm. He's been there for, remember, 5 years. They're showing 5 years later, the earth plane after Thanos has decimated half the population. He pops out of a van, okay, from the quantum field. He finally gets out. He goes to his homies, like, what happened? They were like, yo, you've been gone 5 years. He was like, 5 years? In the quantum realm, I was only going for 5 hours. So in his perception of reality in the quantum field, the time itself, what happened? This channel is suspected of FFIs, something happened. Okay. It won't let me see that. Hold on. Show that. Oh, you just said something, Jennifer Reeves. I'm just trying to read it. Infinite Plane Society channel is suspected a FF on the ISS, either an asteroid or China or Russia blanks it, shoots it. Interesting. Oh, okay. We'll get into that, Jennifer. That's interesting. Thank you for that intel. I'm gonna check that out. He comes out. He details to them, listen, I was in the quantum realm and, it was I didn't get all that time space. I didn't experience time in the way that you guys did. For me, it was like 5 hours ago. For y'all, it's like 5 years. So they devised. This is where we get into. Oh wait, you have to remember the original mother died, and by her was the Infinity Stones created. Iron Man is Lucifer, is for humanity, but by Eve, the religion hijacking wanted to control humanity. Oh, beautiful perspective, Monica. Thank you. Beautiful perspective. I'd have to ponder on that a bit, but I can understand that. I can understand the symbology of that. The original mother died, by her was the Infinity Stones. I could accept that. Okay, so we have now Iron Man showing up. Not Iron Man, Ant-Man showing up. Remember, I told Ant-Man is a minuscule plausibility of potentiality, just like the rat, which has been discarded from humanity and basically not seen as respected amongst the others. Do you see what I mean? So there's a little symbolism going on with the rat. Was the one who created the opportunity for Ant-Man to return. Ant-Man is a representation of the minuscule, the aspect of society that's so small that it's not respected or not deemed as important. Okay, even though the Ant-Man is the reason why the entirety of the movie could even be plausible and possible. Okay, so then we have Ant-Man come back. He was like, I was in the quantum realm. If we can have a quantum realm and I could be there and time doesn't exist, time doesn't exist in this way, there is a potentiality of us traveling through time, a time machine. For the most part, there was an understanding that there was a possibility based on something that wasn't feasible previously. Oh yes, this is a spoiler. So anyone watching, do not listen to this. Do not listen to this video. Again, this is going to be my perspective of what I deemed to see the movie was about. Yes, the origin story of the stones and Thanos tells a lot. Absolutely. Okay. So back to they kind of dispelled Back to the Future theory too. Okay, so for those who are Back to the Future, that's more my generation. Back to the Future, the theory of traveling in time, and that you needed a catalyst to be able to transfer your consciousness or your actually molecular structure into another time vortex. This kind of sidebarred that theory a little bit, because they were saying, even during the movie, the concept of time travel changed a little bit, because there was always this concept that you had to change or alter something in order to transfer a consciousness or a molecular structure. But this movie kind of solidified it in a different way. Cover your ears. Okay, so I don't want to get sidebar because there was a couple of gems. So they came up with the idea that there could be time travel. Now, obviously, Doctor Strange and the master teacher of their planet, which is another female, they obviously had the concept of time travel, and that's more so how his lack of presence was why it took them a while to even collect the theory or even to accept the theory that it was plausible to travel with quantum mechanics as opposed to what we consider to be other forms of travel with time, space travel, going through, usually transferring light. Hold on. Oops, hold on. I want to make sure my batteries are okay. Oops, hold on, family. Let me get my batteries are low. Hold on, wait a minute. I am here. I just have to plug in my computer. Hold on. When you think you are full and you're not, which I can't really do. Okay. Hold on, family. I have to bring my notes with me. This is when you didn't plug in your, stuff, right? Hold on. Okay. I'm gonna have to go from a different angle. Okay, family. You're gonna sit here. I hope it's okay. The lighting should be better. Okay, I apologize about this. Okay. Hold on. Okay. I hope it's okay. Okay, family. I'm sorry about that. I had to move aside. Okay, so okay. Sorry about that. I had to plug in my computer. So where'd we end? So we're talking about quantum physics. Now, what I took from this is that we bring in, this is why it's important for us to take in the aspect of 0 point reality. And I want to bring this into this because this is where I got the details from the movie, is that basically, when we're talking about quantum physics, we're talking about the potentiality of coexisting in other forms of self or aspects of self that splinter in other parallel realities, and a host of other time travel or celestial travel or galactical travel, any which way to travel utilizing the molecules being basically made so small that they're able to permeate in and out of different realities. Okay, so we take in the point that we know that we're going in this time frame because remember of the movie, the name of the movie is Avengers EndGame, which we talked about the Infinity Stones. Infinity means just infinite, just an infinite, meaning a non numerical value to how many potentialities they are. Okay, basically that way. So we have I want to make sure I don't skip anything. You know, when I do these reviews, I'm like, to stay focused, it's harder for me to stay focused. It's better when I sidebar because it's easier for me to sidebar because that's my natural personality. Okay, so we basically have them creating a time machine. Now, you see the different families. I love the different family. Like I love seeing Iron Man's family, his daughter, him outside in a beautiful garden. We got to take that in consideration too, family, because they're showing what many of us know to be how most of us in the prepper community or in the post-apocalyptic community or the pre-prepperness pole shift community, him living in a remote house. This is Iron Man living in a remote house, doing his own gardening, living in a beautiful house right by the lake. This is basically what we were seeing in an aspect of Iron Man showing up in his normality of his world that he created after the devastation of what Thanos did. Okay, so we saw that. So now we're starting to see them come together because Captain America, Captain America is so handsome. You ever think that? Like, I never really noticed how handsome he was until this movie. Maybe I wasn't paying attention because I look at a lot of other things, but he's very handsome. So he comes to, Iron Man was like, yo, quantum physics, Ant-Man showed up. We know you could do it because you're the man who's got a multitude of resources and your mind is so expansive that you could probably create this in 2.5 seconds. That's basically what I got from it. And of course, Iron Man was like, yo, this is not going to happen. I have a family. I have a wife. This is a life that I created post this. I'm going to make the best of it. But obviously, David Banner, the Hulk, who are now merged together, the Hulk attempted to do the time travel. And obviously it was going to be a little harder. David Banner is a smart cookie, but he is not to the degree of the Hulk. I mean, by Iron Man by far. His intellect has the capability. He's a scientist, yes, and he basically, even with David Banner, he has a cap on how much his theories could go further into the possibilities of time travel, which we know Iron Man by creating his even. Ladies, ladies. I got little mice in there running around. Okay, so we go a little fast forward. They created the Tesseract. I call it the Tesseract. Anyone who watches Doctor Who, they create the TARDIS. Notice that a lot of the time travel machines. Ever notice that they're called like the Tesseract or the TARDIS? The T. They all have T's in it. You notice that? Almost like a cross. Okay. Notice that, and that is purposefully done. I think that is kind of like in the, you always think that everything that is being created in these movies is by chance or just creative, integrating into, entertainment. But a lot of these things are well thought out. And I just always think it's interesting, like in the Doctor Who movie where he's a TARDIS, it travels time, it's a T. And it starts off with the Tesseract, it's a T. In Time Machine, it's a T. There's a reason why you're seeing that, because it's the crossroads, okay? So any of you witches or occultists know that the crossroads, in the middle of the crossroads, is where a lot of witches at night, when you go to sleep, a lot of the warlocks and the witches and the Satanists and the Masons go out to the middle of the crossroads, in the middle of roads, and they do a lot of the deeds, okay? They do a lot of, because inside of the middle of that T, in the middle of that crossroads, is what is considered to be a vortex, an opening. And it's interesting that all of the words that relate to time travel start with T. Okay, so I just noticed that was very interesting. So they built it. It was groovy. Of course, Iron Man did not give up, did not let them down. He came through and he did it. Now, what I found was interesting, this is when we start to get into timelines and intercepting into timelines. And we talk about this on Aquarius Rising. We also talk about it on my IG. And you know that we decided to jump timelines. So we and ourselves, whoever joined, big up to those who joined the timeline, because now we're coexisting in another timeline. And I even know that I jumped timelines after we jumped the last timeline, because I could not remember how I used to respond to people in emails. And that's not just a fast. Because people like, listen, you're in a 20-day fast, you don't remember anything. That's BS. I'm on a fast, but my memory's fine. I couldn't remember how to sign my signatures on my emails. And I know that means that the person that I was in a previous timeline, I'm not, because I would remember my automated response that I give to everyone when I sign a signature on my email. So anyway, they decided to do a practice run of timelines. And this is when we intercept into different timelines, because we really think that time travel is basically traveling back and forth. Now, if you realize that if you watch Doctor Strange, you realize time is not linear. It isn't up and down, side to side. It's everything. So it's all the 360 degrees. If I step to the left and then step up, and even Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory gets into this. If anyone watched Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, if you remember at the end of the movie when Charlie is going inside of the elevator at the end, remember he went in the elevator then because he thought he lost the prize, but then he gained it. And they were going in the elevator and he thought they were going up, but they ended up going sideways, this way, that way. And it wasn't necessarily up that got them to the surface. It was a multitude of different positional, positions that ended up getting them to what they wanted to go to, which were inevitably up outside the building. Okay. So it's the same with time travel. We take time travel. And if you have a very limited perception of reality, based on maybe lack of self-awareness, or maybe just not being too developed in quantum physics or quantum realities or dimensional shifts or dimensional travel, you have to take in consideration. Caroline, big up to you for making your 3-day fast. Big up to you. Phenomenal. Congratulations. You would understand that it's not up or down. It's not linear. Time overlaps on one another, and it kind of arches, and it goes in different angles. And where you go, the potentiality of where you go is where you direct yourself, if in fact you have that capability. As Ant-Man said, they were trying to, he said, I was in the quantum realm, but I didn't have any control as to where I was. Whereas they said, well, we have to develop a time machine, but not only do we need to develop it, but but we have to basically develop it in a way where we can control and pinpoint time reference. We have to have a time reference of where we want to go. You haven't seen it yet? Well, Parry, why are you here? Okay, Parry, you're about to get blocked for even telling people in my group to shut up. You're disrespectful. Do I have any of my moderations in here? Okay. Okay. Hold on. Let me add some mods. Some of my mods aren't on here right now. You're very disrespectful. You don't come in my group and tell my group to shut up. It's you need to kick rocks. Thank you, Patience. Out of here. Don't come in my room being disrespectful. Do you know there's witches and warlocks and all kinds of voodoo and hoodoo people in here? Are you crazy? Don't get mad when you start having things flying outside your window and having nightmares, please. Anyway, so they find out how to travel. Now, what was interesting is they did test runs, and you see the man enter into the house where his daughter was. No, I don't mind you using questionable language sometimes. I have a filter so people can't. That's why you don't see curses. I have a filter for curses in my chat. So don't worry about that. You won't see, even if someone's play cursing, you won't see it because it'll automatically block it. So don't worry about that. When someone comes in here and it's disregarding, it's unnecessary. This is our family. This is our house. And they come in our house, trying to come in our house being dirty, they're gonna be kicked out. Okay. Respect. All right. So, okay. So now we have them traveling and doing testers. And what I thought was so masterful, this is why I love this movie, because the possibilities where some people don't even have the plausibility to accept that time travel exists, seeing the aspects of how they showed it. That's how I know whoever created this movie or whoever produced these movies has a concept of quantum physics, and actually these are people that have been based into other forms of probably projects Pegasus, what we're about to get into. Okay, so and if you don't know what Project Pegasus is it's a okay. Remember, okay, so let me segue in. Captain Marvel in the previous movie, okay, of Avengers. This is the one previous to this coming out. Like this came out like 2 weeks. I went to go see it. It was a bomb.com. Anybody who didn't see it, you have to see Captain Marvel. If you're a female, you have to see Captain Marvel. This is the invocation. This is also a trigger for the divine feminine, the warrioress feminine to come online. It will provoke those codons for the feminine energy, the warrioress to come online. Captain Marvel does that beautifully. Okay, so you got to check it out. Okay, so Project Pegasus is the concept. Okay, so let me give you the actual concept. Okay, Project Pegasus, which many of us know in the ET community, that has to do with time travel and teleportation. Okay, teleportation is the act of taking someone's molecular structure, making it tiny, or departicleizing someone to break them up so they're not solidified, so they're not solid, and allowing those particles to transfer into the ether and go directly to a specific place. Now, for many of you don't know, Project Pegasus, there was many trials with Project Pegasus, and many of you know who are part of that community. And I like to give you reference points in movies because a lot of you watch movies. If you watch Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, when they were inside of the lab taking pictures, taking people and make them smaller or bigger, what was he doing? He was departicleizing. He was using a teleport to take the molecules and split them apart, and take those molecules and make them small and separate them and and transfer them into another arena, or shapeshift them to allow for them to perhaps expand or to refract. Okay, so that's what the departicleization is when you're teleporting. I want to give you a different idea of teleporting and time travel. But in this movie, which is interesting, that's why I'm saying it's a little different than like Back to the Future or other movies. They're using quantum physics for time travel, which is very interesting because they expand the theory of what we got basically in other movies and pulled it to a whole nother arena. Okay, so I love this. So we're going to bring why I'm going to bring a project. I hate bringing a Project Pegasus so early for you because Oh, thank you. Thank you. This is my 20 days of my fast, everyone. So, Florburn is still here. People are like, oh, she's going to die. Oh my God, she's going to get sick. I'm okay. 20 days. And I sat through a 3-hour movie without one snack. And it was torture, though. It was literal torture. But this is my 20th day. I only have 10 days left of my fast. Wish me well. I told you I'm about that life. So if I talk about it, I got to be about it. So I got 10 more days of the fast. Some people are trying to make me go further to 40 days. So I could tell the Christians I did 40 days and 40 nights of fasting. Can you compare to that with Jesus Christ? Anyway, so let's go into Project Pegasus. So let me give you a little bit of idea about Project Pegasus. I told you it has to do with time travel and teleportation. You had this Project Pegasus was created in 1962 and it went into 1972. Okay. Many of you know Andrew Basiago. Andrew Basiago is one of the top whistleblowers talking about the project. And he's, remember Project Pegasus was created by the CIA and DARPA, okay, the group DARPA. And, this was, and also DARPA and the CIA were in alignment with nefarious ETs. Okay, nefarious just means negative ETs that are not here for humanity. Okay, so why is Project Pegasus so important? Check out Captain Marvel, because what you'll see in one of the scenes on the door is Project Pegasus, Dark Room. It says that. There's a sign. I wanted to put it on my feed, but I wanted to put Pegasus because there's a reason why I put Pegasus on here, and you're about to find out. So Project Pegasus is who is in control of that now, and also if you get a chance to watch Andrew Basiago, check out the Gettysburg jump, because they talk about the jump that they did, and this is a real organization. This is not cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs conversation. For those who are not even in the prospect of true time travel, they pass time travel. They're teleporting people to Mars. That's where you get jump rooms from. So if you're not even in the concept of that, this is something that our group already knows is about that. They know that happens. Once the government gives you little tinkles of it, means they've mastered it. Okay, so when they give you an aspect of maybe time travel, it means they master time travel and they're onto something else, a little more, higher field and a little more advanced. Okay, so Kook, don't come in here ruining everybody. Okay, Kook, you're about to. Okay, Kook, I'm going to have to remove you. Okay, because you're very rude. That was very rude to bring that up yet. We're not even to that point in the movie yet. Let us get to the point where we discuss that. That was very disrespectful to even bring that up when we're not even that point in the movie. You know what I'm saying? Some of you have to learn good manners. I don't know who raised you, or if, my ex-husband used to say he was raised by wolves. When you come in someone's house, you see the tone of the party that's in there and you match. Or if you don't have anything good to say, just walk out the door. Okay? So anyway, I'm in that kind of mood today. So we get into the aspect of Project Pegasus. Now we have, which is the funniest part of the movie though, which I think is so interesting, is why did they make Thor look like an old beer junkie? When Thor came and they visited him his house, he had like kegs outside the house. They said he only comes out of his house once in a while. Why is it that Thor, now remember, we're talking about archetypes, because now I'm going to start breaking in the archetypes. Thor is the ultimate lunar warrior. He is the basic representation of that warrior, that Viking spirit that is represented as the one who is ruling with the iron fist, right? And he is the one who has conducted and given and is basically allowed for the ebb and flow to go as he deems is acceptable. Thor is a representation of an aspect of patriarchy that has been glorified for its diabolical behavior and has been rewarded by being, raised up to be something greater than life. So in this aspect of them depreciating the value of Thor, that's very telling, family. And I'll get into that later. you show up. Thor is he's a handsome man, sexy, virile. He is the one that is the holding the paralysis of, you know, of the status of the patriarchy. And they walk in, they're going to go search for Thor because they need everybody to be about, they need everybody to get bowdy. Bowdy just means that everybody be about it. They're about to do time travel and get back these Infinity Stones and time travel and bring back all their people. They need the best and the baddest. So they go to Asgard, you know, where Thor rules, and went to go get, you know, Thor. And Thor was a basic, let's keep it real, he was a drunk. He was a washed up, chunky, playing video games, the epitome of what American society is creating with all of these males now, you know, non-motivated, you know, washed up, drunk, alcoholic, who's lost his virility, who's lost his self-esteem, and is engaged in life in a way that no longer services humanity or himself, hanging out with sea trash. Yes, that's the representation of the patriarchy. Okay, washed up, looking, and then, you know, others that come to the door like, listen, we need your help. You're supposed to be the strongest. You're the one who's created worlds. You're the one who shifts worlds into a certain way. Oh yes, hey Asta. Yes, I'm doing well. 20 days in. So you know, they come in the house. He smells like there ain't nobody's business. Remember the guy, the raccoon from Guardians of the Galaxy's in the house, coming to come get him. They walk in the house. His stomach is hanging over. He smells like yesterday's business. He was absolutely exposed. Thank you. Yes, he was exposed. He was exposed for being not a perfect person, not this great. He was only as great as everything around him. And when society fell apart and he no longer was being, you know, held up to a high standard of, you know, how we do that, like, you know, like the knight in shining armor, he fell apart. So it also is a representation of the patriarchy when it does not have a focus of domination, or it doesn't have the escalation or the or people you know, giving him fuel to feed his ego. He no longer has a purpose. Okay, he no longer has his self-esteem is dropped because the way that he is purely based on the what is it? What's the word? When I you know, it's always some words that I cannot ever remember. When he's raised up to the point where he's greater than, you know, life. Okay, his ego, exactly. So he wasn't all that. So they went and got him, put him on the back of the truck, brought him back, and I loved this. Why? Is because Thor was always very strong, very virile, very self-assured, and yeah, babe. Very self-assured, and it showed an aspect of the ego. When the ego isn't fed, it no longer exists in a way that we presume it should be. Okay, no motivation. Thank you, Hannah. No motivation. He just wasn't. His ego was gone, and ego needs to be fed. So unlike the other characters or the other archetypes of heroes, superheroes, it was interesting that the one that is deemed to be the God archetype wasn't a god if it didn't have exaltation. Okay, if it didn't have exaltation, then it wasn't a god anymore. Okay, and even throughout the movie, he wasn't able to gain that self-respect and that paralysis that Thor had in every single series that we've ever seen. We hadn't seen the depreciation of the god archetype, the patriarchal archetype. We hadn't seen that before. We got a chance to see that now. Okay. So we go a little further. Okay, they decide to do the time jump. It's all good in the hood. They got everybody. They're out to get the 6 stones. They're traveling back to the past. Now, are they traveling back to the past, or are they traveling into alternate realities that are rewound. Okay. Listen to what I said. Are they actually traveling back to the past? Are they going to the side to other realities where things haven't happened yet? That's why you have to have the concept of quantum realities and quantum entanglement, because I personally know that they didn't necessarily travel back in the past as you think. They they permeated into another alternate reality where those events hadn't occurred yet. Remember, we got to be careful about past, present, and future because they all overlap. So what you think is the past is another alternate reality where, let's say I'm playing a song for you. I want to get you into concept. I'm playing a song for you. You know, I love my songs. So I'm playing like Staying Alive, ha, 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 Staying Alive. You know, I'm not a great singer. So I'm playing that song by the Bee Gees, right? And I'm rocking, right? But I jump into another timeline where I haven't even gotten past the first part of the chorus. Okay. But in this part, I already got past the chorus. I'm at the end of the song when I play in the beats, you know, and what have you. But when I jump into another timeline, the chorus hasn't even started yet. This is where I get into the concept of quantum jumping, because where you think you're going in the past, you're just going into an alternate reality where things haven't occurred yet. That's it. I just wanted to add that little fact. So they jump into another reality and you see them start to, there we get into it. They start to see aspects of themselves. There we go. Let's go back to my concept that we've talked about on Aquarius Rising on the show many times. We talked about the fact that, right, we are going back to 0 point. Remember that, family. It's very important because the collapsing of the timelines is what we're experiencing now, allows for the permeation of other aspects of self to meet the aspects of self. Thus comes the Gemini Man, all these movies where people are coming in contact with other aspects of themselves. And some are saying, oh, those are doppelgangers or those are clones. No, those are you in alternate timelines. If the timelines are collapsing, you're going to meet other aspects of yourself. Many of you are merging them. But what if you actually, you know, when we get into concept of us, what if you actually meet those other versions of you? Okay, so then we start talking about that. So when they jump in to these other alternate realities, right? Alternate realities. I'm not going to say they want time traveling. I'm going to say they want timeline traveling. Okay, they get into alternate realities. They start to see themselves from the position of another timeline. And remember, even though I don't think they brought this up, because usually, like in Back to the Future, if you get too close to yourself, you can cause a paradox, right? Or you alter too much of your reality, you can cause a paradox. Okay, paradox is when things are, it's almost like an explosion, an implosion, right? Things are imploding. So it's basically like not explosion, it's an imploding. I'm sorry, imploding. Okay, it's when you get too close to an aspect of yourself and you change or alter an aspect of your past that automatically splinters throughout the timelines and causes like a paradox. Okay, where you may not even exist, or you exist in different ways, or your parents never met. That was kind of like in Back to the Future. Okay, remember when Michael J. Fox had met his mother and father, and the father, how he met his mother was oh, wait. We have, patience, virtue. Hold on. I'm going to make some admins in here because I can't, moderators. Okay, patience, you're a moderator. I need another moderator. Disintegrate them. Do like that. Do like the, oh, okay. Wait, Joy Music. Here we go. Joy Music. Here we go. Wait, hold on. Joy. Can I get you, Joy? Hold on. Here we go. Okay, Joy. There you go. Where's Aster? Okay, Aster's here. Okay, get him. Do like Iron Man did at the end. Out. Disintegrate. Poof. Okay, so when they so unkindly. why are there so many trolls on here today? Was it Saturday? Some of you trolls on here don't have a life. You want to come to Flurbrun's house? We're having a gathering here. Okay, so we have them jumping into timelines where they're meeting themselves. Okay, and let me go back into the concept, which I've come to many of the shows we've discussed, returning to 0 point and the collapsing of timelines, which allows for alternate aspects of yourselves to merge. Okay, because once we go into the higher realms and the higher dimensions, we can't be splintered. We have to be whole. In order to be whole, the aspects that you've been coexisting in the other timelines that have been experiencing different aspects of life or what have you, now are merging into one. And in order for us to return back to our unified self, we have to go back, which most people, that's why I say be careful with time and putting it in the way that you deem, which is more matrix like, because there isn't such thing as past and future. Everything's kind of, like I said, overlapping. And returning back to time, returning back to 0 point is returning back to our original origin. Okay. So all these splintered aspects of yourself are now becoming one. And I love this movie because them quantum leaping into another timeline where they were seeing themselves preempt to the event. Get it? Preempt to the event where they were going to, because remember, did the event actually occur? And even though they jumped to try to change something, wasn't it already a potentiality anyway that it would have been that way? Because another alternate reality that they jumped in, they created they created another ripple of an aspect of a change in that whatever the results would be. Okay, so jumped in. Everybody, their goal was to get the Infinity Stones. Okay, so you see them jump, like you saw. I loved that Iron Man met his father, which I thought was wonderful. And seeing an aspect of his father pre-fatherhood, because I think he gave birth to the day that Iron Man jumped with Captain America. They jumped in the same timeline. I think it was in the 40s, okay, when they had Project Pegasus and they were doing all these alternative Black Ops types of experiments. Okay, he jumped into the military where they were holding these time zones, but not only that, they were jumping to get other liquids so that they could jump more. So they needed a particular type of elixir that allowed for jumping and having multitude of jumping to be able to go in and out of different timelines. Okay. But I do really appreciate him meeting his father and seeing his father. This is what Iron Man got a chance to meet his father, and Captain America got a chance to meet his wife. Woo! You didn't know it was going to be his wife, right? Until the end, right? So it was kind of like, it was beautiful because I remember, like I said, Iron Man met his father the day his mother was going into labor with him, and he was hoping for a girl. And he said, if it's a son, he was just saying to his own son who's grown, and he recognized his son. He said, "I recognize you. Do I know you?" And they talked, and just that wonderful moment that they had for a son to travel back in time to speak to his father before his father was to embark on fatherhood in a way that disallowed for maybe changed and altered how he would treat his son later. So it's interesting how that showed up, and also getting a chance to see Captain America for the first time really lay his eyes on his love, his wife, his potential wife, his later wife, and he laid his eyes on her. I thought that was so beautiful to see that, just to see them traveling in time and getting an aspect that they could coexist in different ways, and how they changed somewhat of the realities based on that jump into another timeline, preempt to when they were even born or conceived. Okay, so we go to that, and then okay, so there was another thing. Okay, so each person was directed to get a stone. Now it's important while we talk about this, because when we get into when we get into one of the stones, which is, okay, hold on, the soul stone. Okay, this is probably the most important part of this entirety of the timeline jump. Because if you remember in the previous Infinity Wars, when Thanos had sacrificed the love of his life, his daughter Gamora, to retrieve the Soul Stone, he threw her into the Black Abyss in order to retrieve the stone, because the Soul Stone, required for an exchange of souls in order to gain the rights to this particular gem. So you had Black Widow and you had Hawkeye. Is that his name? Hawkeye? You had Black Widow and Hawkeye. They were directed to go and get that stone. Now, this is the hardest part of the movie, because I've never heard so many people tear up and cry in a movie ever. But this is the shadows, another representation of the shadow self. This is very interesting to actually witness, seeing the sacrifice, because what I think is interesting is that, and big up to the Sunstar I'm going to have on a show. He's going to be on the show. His nickname is Q. I think you've seen him on, I think he was on Osset's show, and also he was on a Share a Star show. I think he was on both. He was on 2 shows. Now, what's interesting with this, and why I have to sidebar a little bit, because he's going to be on my show post fast. So big up to Q, who's going to join me on a post fast. It was actually C-Star. I never saw this gentleman before. I never seen him before. I never heard any of his intel. But Q was actually on 2 of the young lady shows, which I never saw until another C-Star shared him with me and said, you got to have him on. And I was like, I don't even know him. And then I checked out his stuff, and she was like, he's right on point. And this C-Star is on point. She called him up and said, you want to go on, he was on a Sheristo. So thank you, Michael. He was on a Sheristo. Never heard of him before. Again, I think he's from another timeline, because I never even know existed. And whenever I get somebody who's in that world who I have not fumbled upon, makes me think he's from another timeline. Just like Dion the pilot or something, whatever his name is, something the pilot man. I've never seen that being before. There's different males coming from different perspectives from higher field metaphysics, and it's interesting that I'm getting in contact with them. So I reached out to him and say, hey, you want to do the show? He said, I want to do it. He watches my videos. I was like, I'll have you on. But why I want to bring him on is the death aspect and sacrificing a life for a life, okay? Sacrificing a life for a gem. We get into the concept in this movie that in order to gain something, and I thought this was very skull and bones of them to add this aspect into the retrieval of the Infinity Stones. In order to gain an aspect to retrieve something that you did not naturally earn, there needs to be a sacrifice. And that's why I know it has to be skull and bones, a little infiltration in the movie, a little addition added in there, because it is always a soul is sacrificed, something you love. It can't just be any soul. And we talk about in society, especially amongst the elites, and I say elites because they aren't elite, they're deletes. Listen, deletes. Amongst the deletes, they tend to have a history of using sacrifices of their own loved ones in order to gain riches or fame or notoriety, right? So you take this aspect with a stone that's called the Soul Stone, and there needs to be a sacrifice, not just any person, but the person you love. And what is interesting is you have Black Widow, who is, many of you know, is the Russian spy, right? She was a Russian spy, and she was an intelist, okay? And then you have the, what is his name? Hawkeye, okay? And these two, which many of you know, had a history of knowing each other. If you remember, they had a history previous to Avengers. If you remember, it was Hawkeye who found, if I'm not mistaken, he found Black Widow. He found her and brought her to a state, like brought her from the dead, basically, brought her back from the dead, and reestablished her sense of self and self-esteem, and they became good friends, and actually they loved each other. You didn't know that unless you knew the relationship that Hawkeye had with Black Widow previous to this, which was interesting because that's why the sacrifice was made was so much more valid than was denoted with just a relationship from Avengers. Okay, you wouldn't have known it unless you knew them earlier. Okay, and you see, this is why I say it was a tearjerker, because I mean, my little ones don't cry, and they were sniffling and so on. You know, they're the soul that the Grim Reaper. I call him the Grim Reaper, who is the guardian of the Soul Stone, was there guarding the stone in the abyss, right? The lower abyss. And he said, there needs to be an exchange here, not just an exchange, but a sacrifice made, a soul sacrifice in order to retrieve the Soul Stone. And they're both battling, Black Hawk and Black Widow. I was like, definitely Black Hawk, Hawkeye is going down. I was like, they wouldn't get rid of Black Widow. Black Widow and him, he jumps over the cliff. She catches him. She saves him. That's why I say as above, so below, family. Karma played into this so beautifully. Why? Is because Hawkeye resurrected Black Widow at a time when she was just out there. He was her he was the one who brought her to life, right? Brought her to us, brought her to Avengers. He's the resurrector. He's the resurrector. Is that a word? He's the one who resurrected her. Okay. And to see that in the end, she was sacrificed by the same hand. It doesn't matter if he intended to do it. By the same hand that brought her up was the same hand that let her go. The same hand that rose her up, that raised her up, was the same hand that let her go. And that was how the Soul Stone was retrieved. The sacrifices that people make that you're not earned. That's why it's very important. I talk to many of the ritualists, and we talk about this because we're about this life. That's why you have to be careful, because when you don't earn something or it's given to you without merit, without true achievement, without truly earning whatever to be gained from it, whether it's wisdom, whether it's, you know, if you gain wisdom by parasiting off of someone else and it's not really your wisdom, but you gained it just by cheating or robbing someone else, there is a price to pay because the knowledge was not, you didn't gain the wisdom rightfully. So there is always a price to pay. Okay. And it was very tragic to see Black Widow go over that cliff. I think for us, it was probably the first time I felt strongly and emotionally invoked. I'm fasting, so there's not much. There was no tears coming down my eyes because fasting allows for you to really have a very healthy emotional state. I will say this: 20 days of fasting will allow you to have a healthy. If I can withstand from eating snacks during a 3-hour movie, which I've always done, it just lets you know that my concentration and my awareness and my ability to discern and clinically think was a lot more heightened. That's all. So, okay. Now, why it's important? Because remember, when they came back from jumping, everybody got their stones. They came back. The one person, there was 2 people that weren't coming back. Oh wait, it was no, it was just basically Black Widow that did not return from that jump. It did not return from the jump. So they came back without Black Widow. And it was really disheartening because the group, and David Banner, now merged with the Hulk, took it really hard. He was close to her. I think the whole group found it really disheartening because they're trying to bring people back. You know what I mean? And is time travel the same as reincarnation? Yes, it's one and the same. Okay. The difference between time travel and reincarnation is that one is inactive in their choices and the other is active in their choice. Meaning that if I'm going sailing and I'm a sailor, I know how to direct my sail in order to go the direction I want to go to. Reincarnation is basically just having a sail up and just letting the oceans navigate you and every outside element navigate you without you having any knowledge or any wisdom to be able to navigate yourself. That's basically the difference. But it's one and the same. Yes. Um, Hey, Linnea Fairy Light. Good. We're going into different aspect. We're kind of breaking down the movie of through the moon, through the dark side of the moon, the recycling where they clear you. Don't go into the light. Anybody who's about to pass away, or you know that you're about to cross over, or or you have a family member. I told my father before he left, I was like, don't go into that light. That artificial light is where they go and clear you. It's basically on the dark side of the moon where they take you and they swipe your soul of all memories, and then they reinstate you back into the matrix without with a sense of without your memories. Okay, so it's a clean slate. Yeah, no white light. You go to the beat of your heart. You go. Everybody has a different thing that they are supposed to listen to. So big up to Dr. Delbert Blair. He actually did. When we were in New York, we were in Harlem, in the Harlem Center. He actually did a meditation group where we listen to our soul sound. And mine was actually water. Okay, the sound of water. Some people is a drum. Some people was like a flickering, like a ping. Everybody has a soul sound, and with that, you're supposed to, when you cross over, you're supposed to listen and hear your soul sound, because that's the direction you're supposed to go into. And then it's not the illumination, it's a feeling that pulls you, and that's where you're supposed to go. That reincarnation machine is a bright light, and then they have all kinds of holograms in there with imprints of your family members guiding you, telling you to come. You see your father who's passed away, your mother who's passed away. Come, love, come into the light. No, that's a trick. So many of you will remember this conversation. Okay, I've had somebody who didn't realize. I have somebody from our group who actually died and came back and said they remembered me saying, "Don't go to the light," and they didn't go. Okay, so you'll remember it when it's time. You'll keep it in your subconscious. I tell your family members, even if they don't remember. My father didn't go into the light. That's why he stayed with us as long as he did. Okay, I kind of diverged. Okay, okay. So they came back without Black Widow. Black Widow's gone. It was tragic. It was probably the saddest thing. I've never heard so many tears in a movie theater, sniffling. Oh, it was sad. Spirit said the yogis and Tibetan monks teach this. The white light is reincarnation. Wes Panra has a lot on this topic. Thank you for that, Spirit. Thank you. Kelly in the Raw. I have issues with Kelly. Anyway. Okay, so we go in. So we have all the stones retrieved. Okay, so now they can utilize the stone. Now, what's interesting is that, and it goes into what occurred with me last year when I experienced the rainbow event. Now, I thought this was interesting, and this is probably more personally a insight as I experienced the full-on rainbow event last year. The fact of the matter is, when they created the glove. Now, remember, Thanos had created the glove that was perfectly synced for him genetically, for his consciousness, and for the way that he was, the way that his vibration was. The glove matched him, so that even though the power of the glove with all the infinity stones was really, really heightened, he was able to take in that energy and be able to transmute it and utilize it, okay, without it damaging his very DNA. Now, when I experienced the full-on event, now later on, I realized why I experienced it, because my DNA and my very makeup was allotted to be able to experience something full on that way. I didn't know previously, because I was like, why would I experience it in such a very tangible way? I never heard anybody experiencing it like that. I think I was the only person who experienced a wave in that strong way, like physically. And it was interesting because genetically, you can only match. Anything that you interact with has to match your frequency and vibration, or it doesn't really interact with you, or it messes with you. Okay. Same with this glove with the infinity stones, the rainbow infinity stones. Okay. So now they create oh, wait, let me go back a little bit, because I missed a little part about our wonderful biobot, or Synthetica, which is nebulous. Okay. So at one point, remember, now this is very important, family. I didn't want to miss this. I totally forgot about this. We have nebulous. Remember when they went to retrieve the stones, each group was set out to retrieve a specific stone. Now, nebulous, remember they traveled in another timeline where it was previous to the time that previous to the event that happened in their timeline. they came upon the planet where Nebulous was from. And Thanos, Nebulous, and then the living Gamora was there. Gamora, the previous Gamora, who did not go through the events in the other timeline yet. She had not met the galaxy, the galaxy guy who she was in love with. She didn't meet Gru. She didn't meet any of them. This is the previous Gamora who was still working in sync with her father and the previous heinous, not far more removed Nebulous. Okay, so they go to the planet, and this is where it's very important, because we also talk about this, is the hijacking of your electronics. Even though Nebulous was formulating some consciousness, she was still collectively part of the hive mind, meaning that she was always going to be inceptible, and anything could hack into her because she was mechanics. Because mankind created that. Entities created that being. She wasn't natural. She was genetically modified. And this was where we go into transhumanism. And transhumanism allows for people to be hijacked through the machinery that they're basically synced with their body, their biosphere. So you have Gamora with her sister and Thanos on now starting to look. They just starting this journey to start looking for the stones, because it's previous to the event that actually happened and occurred on their other timeline. So Gamora's living as her previous self, and she's with her sister Nebulous. And all of a sudden, Nebulous's eyes open, boom, like she glitches out, right, in the presence of her father and sister. And as they're looking, she has a holographic imagery of what's occurring with the Nebulous that is in the other timeline that is already embarking on trying to stop her father and alter and bring back those, and assist with the group to bring back those and that timeline that was incepted by Thanos and Agedia. Okay, so Thanos made her that way, but that goes into transhumanism, making her less human, so she would be less feeling. Hey, Fitchy girl. Okay, what was the question? Did someone have a question? Okay, so she glitched out, her eyes show, she gets a thing, but she's been hijacked. Now, it's interesting that, though, that's why I say, remember when we talked about the nanotechnology falling off of our bodies? Because if it didn't, we would go into the higher realms of consciousness and 5D plus. And if we had nanotechnology inside of us, the others would be able to hijack and see how to incept into higher realms if we were connected to technology in our bodies. Okay, so this is deep, family, because this gets into not only quantum physics, we start to get into transhumanism, we start to get into the timeline jumping, and also we start to get into aspects of hijacking higher realms of dimensions that the others, the dark minions, are attempting to do by putting nanotechnology inside of us with nanofibers to allow to hijack into the higher fields so that they can get the intel, because they can just download it from the technology that's inside of us. That goes into it. So we talk about that. So when we talk about Nebulous going into a higher form of herself, but she's still connected to the hive because she is the nanotech. She is part of the transhuman being that was created, and her very being was created so that it could be hijacked. So she is hijackable, and she disclosed, unbeknown to herself, even though she's evolved past that, she's still part of the collective. Okay, so they hijacked her and so on. So now they found her. She was unable to travel back, and they captured her. Okay, upon capturing her, now this is so important because we have an aspect. Remember, Gamora was the one who was sacrificed. Thanos sacrificed for his loved one. Okay, his loved one. Into the abyss to gain the soul stone, right? The soul stone, right? Which is very, very yellow, very bright, like the solar plexus, right? So they find Nebulous, they get her, but now Nebulous is now being confronted by her sister, who she lost in the abyss, who was sacrificed by her father, and the father who she saw beheaded when they killed him after he had already altered the change in the other timeline, and to be confronted with herself. Now, let me go into this, family. Nebulous being confronted by herself is a confronting of her shadow. Remember we talked about shadow work? There's so many metaphysical gems in this movie. It is sick. It is so sick. Being confronted by her shadow, the aspect of herself that is unresolved, it is unchanged, it hasn't gotten to the point where it's self-aware. So the shadow aspect of herself, her confronting her shadow self and basically coming in front of it. It's the same with the movie not Extinction, what's the other movie with the rainbow? I forgot the other movie. It was another movie where the other one was, there was another shadow, and she was mimicking Annihilation. When she, at the end, she was confronted with a being that, came out and started to mimic her and mocked her. And it was a kind of like this shadow, this mirroring effect where it was trying to, but it was more nefarious than her, right? Because it wasn't her. It was the more primitive version of her. Nebulous, the previous version of Nebulous is the primitive version of her, which is the confronting of the shadow, right? The confronting of the shadow. Now, remember, back in the days, the love and light community would tell you, purge the shadow, purge it, purge the shadow. No incorporating it, ban it, banish the shadow. You don't want to see your shadows. Even the churches say, well, I rebuke you. The aspect of your evil self, the devil in yourself. If you're sexy and you want to go drop it like it's hot, rebuke it. It's the devil. Get it out of you. Exercise it. Get rid of it. Family, this is when we see the aspect of what needs to be within ourselves. It is not the excommunication of yourself, your shadow. It is not the rebuking of your shadow. It is not even the casting away of your shadow. It is the incorporation, the merging, not the purging, the merging of your shadow. So in it itself, Nebulous, who is created in the whole theory of transhumanism, is confronted with her shadow. The part of herself that wasn't developed and awake. It was created out of trauma and under the service of the dark ones, right? Her father was confronted with it. And though, she fought her sister, the older version, the more savage version, put Nebulous, locked her up, and was down for servitude to her father because that's all she knew. She was created to be in servitude of her father, okay? She exalted her father, right? So, Gamora was there, and they went out, and now Nebulous is under captivity, and Gamora's left behind. And she said to Gamora before the other one left with her father, the other Nebulous left with the father, Thanos, do you want to know what he did to you? Do you want to know what he did to you? And she didn't, because remember, we know Gamora previous to her jumping ship. We know Gamora was not in sync with her father. So the old Nebulous, the more evolved Nebulous, knew this about her sister. And later on, this is where I love this. Later on, the talking to Gamora, the newer version of Nebulous, the more evolved version of Nebulous, spoke to her sister and said, yes, I hated you. And I tried. She came truthful with her sister. Listen, this is the sisterhood coming online, family. It's very important because I want to discuss so many different layers of metaphysics in this movie and so many gems of the sisterhood coming back online and being honest with our sister, saying, she said to her sister, sisterhood is just this, saying to your sister, I hated you. I was jealous of you. I tried to kill you. But after a while, we started to become friends. We became close. And once she said that, the release of the truth of an aspect that Gamora didn't know possible with her previous sister in her undivine, her unevolved way, the shadow of Nebulous. She woke up and released Nebulous from her captivity and decided to work together. Okay, so later on, I just want to bring that up because I forgot to bring that point up. It's very important. We have the sisterhood coming up in here, the releasing of the truth, and the reestablishment of unity consciousness, and healing the sisterhood, the wounded warrioress who's been competitive and been basically in battle since the inception of patriarchy. and her coming back online and realizing the truth in her evolved state, and also meeting her shadow. And once she met her shadow, she was able to release the truth to her sisters, to her sister. Okay. I love that. I love that concept. Okay. So, let me see. Okay. So, so we got to take in consideration this, which is interesting because I think this is a segue into the other aspect of the movie. When they came back without Black Widow, the one thing that Hawkeye's detailed is that we can never bring her back. He said we can never bring Black Widow back because I had to sacrifice a soul to get the stone. Remember, Gamora is back. It is another version of her in another timeline where she isn't dead. If you remember in the movie, Gamora is back. I just wanted to give you that gem. I don't want to say too much into it because I know they probably sidebar this into it, but I noticed that he said we can't bring Black Widow back. But in itself, they went to another timeline where Gamora was sacrificed by Thanos, but she's back. She just doesn't remember the things because in her timeline, those things didn't occur yet. And they won't because they sidebarred her. Okay, so that's interesting. So we have you can't have the divine feminine without absolutely divine feminine, masculine, all. But we have representations of the divine masculine, which you'll get further in the movie. Remember the wounded warrioress has been suppressed. Because the warrioress that shows up has been so scathed by her sisters who are under the mind control of the Stoic patriarchy that they have been disallowed from really being loved or accepted by their sisters or even revered. So the wounded warrioress has been fighting battles without getting any sort of kudos from her sisters. So she's been battling these things for herself and for her sisterhood without the resolvement. And this is part of us fielding together the wounds of the previous sisters and bringing in a sense of sisterhood. And you'll see that in the movie when we see all the ladies stand up ready for battle, which gave me chills all over. Okay. So, okay. So we get, okay. So then we get into what happened. I wanted to bring that up. Hold on. I want to make sure I get everything. That's why I took notes. I love when I take notes. Okay. Okay. So we have the battle invoking now. So now Thanos wants the thing, and he brings his posse. He brings all the demons, demon dogs. He's got mechanical insectilians coming out of ships. He's got things coming out of the sky, portals. He's released the Kraken up in the piece. He's got everything coming out, and they're ready for battle. Now, with the beauty of the stones being used originally by David Banner, because the Hulk was the only one believed to be able to have the strength and the capability based on his merging and his intelligence and his altered state with all the gamma radiation to be able to field in the energies of the rainbow. Now, listen, family, it's very important because we talked about the rainbow event last year. Interesting, they said that he thought he would be able to take it in more because he was exposed. He was the only one, because of his hyper green melanated state, to be able to take in gamma radiation, because that's how in itself the Hulk was created, through gamma radiation. We talk about the heightened melanin, the melanin component, dark matter that they utilize, that we know for a fact when they spray over rocket ships, they have to spray the rocket ships with melanin to be able to pierce through the atmosphere, because without it, it would not allow for anything would disintegrate, including people. That's why there aren't any people traveling out to space. If they're going out to the other galaxies, it's through jump rooms. It's certainly not through that, unless they're traveling with ETs. And even through that type of travel, they would have to be protected and sealed in extraterrestrial kind of shielding in order to pierce through the atmosphere. We aren't going. Okay. I know that you may not accept that. That is just what I know. Okay. So we take in the fact that the Hulk is the only one who has heightened amount of abilities because of his chlorophyll skin, his melanin, that allows for him to take in the energy. So he takes on the glove. He puts it on, the rainbow glove, You know, hee. That's what Dilo Pilot. Big up to Dilo Pilot. I never heard a character like that in my life. His language is questionable, though. You know, I'm not a fan of cursing on a thing. But Dilo during this is an astrologer guy who I just saw on my new timeline. He goes hee. Anytime he gets happy, it's so amusing. I'm fascinated. I've never seen anything. I've never witnessed any kind of being like that on this earth plane. So he takes it on and he puts it on, and he's able to change reality. And all of a sudden, you start seeing everyone. The young lady who died call back. She's calling on the he's calling on the phone. People who had died are coming back. All the superheroes that were gone all start showing up. Everybody started clapping. You have each person showing in. Everybody, it was absolutely amazing. It was probably like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. But what's interesting is that even though the Hulk had green skin, he still didn't have the capability of taking in and was exposed to gamma radiation. He still was altered and harmed and burned by the rainbow energy on that glove, even though he claimed that he thought that he would be able to withstand the gamma radiation. But even in itself, he was unable to fully take in that energy because it did damage him physically. Okay. Now, this is when we get into the concept of what goes on during the movie. There's a couple of things showing up, telling you what times we're in and where we're going. Okay. So you got everyone showing up, but Thanos is not going down without a fight. He was like, I don't care what you do. I'm gonna bring all the monsters and everything out of my world, and then we're gonna battle. Thinking that he was gonna battle just a few limited superheroes that weren't even ready for this type of battle. But this is when the movie got amazing. When you start seeing Doctor Strange came in last, opening up portals left and right, like portals all over the place. Bam, opening, bam, opening, bam, opening. And all you see is Black Panther and the Wakanda warriors coming through the portals and chanting an African, Wakanda chant, like, whoa. I was like, it's so amazing. I was like, oh my God. And then you see all of the wonderful women coming out. And then listen, family, not to play any games. Who did you see? Valcor came on a Pegasus. Listen, family, the gems are amazing. Whether Valcor, remember Valcor is Thor's homegirl, the melanated woman. Listen, Valcor is a melanated woman who's from she's from Ascan. She's from Ascan. And she comes flying out one of the vortexes on Pegasus. Family, if they don't tell you symbols, Project Pegasus, they threw that Pegasus and they brought one person. Valcor was riding that Pegasus. It's amazing. Listen, when I came in, I swear that whole theater, that movie theater was lit. You would have thought we won the Super Bowl. You would have thought that Super Bowls. Let me stop. I promise you, man, I won't talk about Super Bowls anymore. You got mad at me because you said I ruined your whole football year. I'm sorry, but it is still called football for Super Bowls. Anyway, Asuka came out. It was off the chain. They came in, even though they had these monsters coming looking gray. Now, listen, we denote colors. All the spectrums of light were showing up in unity consciousness amongst the superheroes, okay? Who were representing the divine and light. And on the other side, you had grays. Everything that had to do with their world was gray. Even Thanos's outfit was gray, okay? All of them represented grays, which is an artificial type of intelligence color, okay? That gray is connected to artificial intelligence. It's created to bioengineering. It's related to non-human life. It is a representation of nanotechnology and AI. So we got the battle going on, right? And then you see Spidey, the young man who disappeared, who was, again, we get the reemergence of an aspect of those who are risen up and those who were pulled away. So you get Spidey who shows up, and Iron Man, And, young Spidey comes, and Iron Man, who really, his heart was broken because he promised the kid wouldn't die, especially he got to see Spider-Man disappear in front of his eyes, and it broke his heart. You see Spider-Man show up, right? Gray versus the rainbow, right, Hannah? The grays, the diabolical grays we talk about showing up against the rainbows, right? AI versus divine consciousness versus divine consciousness, divine energies, the higher frequencies versus gray AI, far removed from humanity, energy coming to battle, right? So you got them, the glove falls off. They try to get the glove. Now they realize we could stop all this because we got time technology. We have that van, the van that had that bootleg, like the bootleg 70s van that was in that locker room. It was in the middle of the battlefield, right? Represented the aspect of possibilities, a change in the game, the layout, the blueprint could be changed again and altered based on an advantage that was given to another group based on their potentiality of traveling through time or accepting another version of an aspect of themselves. Because in order to jump time, you have to accept another version, another aspect of yourself. That's why those who had the hardest time believing in other aspects of things that we may know are actually in being, those other people have a hard time accepting that if they don't have imagination. Because imagination allows you to look past what you've been stamped with or conditioned with or been propaganded with over and over to see past the veil. So it allows for you to see the other realities based on the fact that you're not stamped or capped in consciousness. Okay? So now you see the battle invoke. Oh, it's amazing. If you have not seen the movie, this in itself, listen, if you just walked into that last part of the movie, you would have gotten your whole money's worth. It was the most amazing, fascinating, just a beautiful view of how consciousness will in itself prevail over the AI and those who are lacking in consciousness and feeling and compassion. Because Thanos said at the end, when he had sat to battle again, he was like, I know what I did wrong with humanity. I left 50% of you. Listen to what he said. He represents the grays and the AI. He said, I left 50% of you. He said, I made a mistake. Now I know what my mistake is. I should have gotten rid of everything and created everything from scratch so you don't remember what you never knew. So he basically was saying, even leaving the 50% that he did, he realized it was a mistake based on the fact that those people remembered how it was previously, and they would never be happy because they would always try to recap or get back what they lost. So they knew that this battle had to be won, because if in fact he got control, and again, a couple times in the movie at the end, Thanos got that glove, and my heart was feeling it. I was like, oh, please, I can't do another movie like this. I can't do another disappearance. Okay. That van was in the middle. You got Spidey, who met Iron Man, who was basically his like a father figure to him. Spidey was in it. He had Spidey legs come out of his back, which I never seen him do before. That was awesome. Basically, moving forward, you have the Wakanda warrioresses. Then at one point, which I got chills, and I got to take a picture of it. You have one point, you see all of the females. Woo! Divine warrioresses. You've got all of them standing together. It was a sisterhood online, walking together, every color, every nationality, every ability, every background, every stature, everything standing together. That was sisterhood. That is a detail of what is happening, family. This movie was not just a denotion on metaphysical, bringing up metaphysical gems to us and heightening our awareness for those who can accept and also see past what the movie, and a couple agendas going through and through. It was the potentiality of what is going to be the future of the sisterhood coming online, with the fielding together of the warrioresses. The wounded warrioresses weren't wounded anymore. They understood that their shadows, little Nebulous made right with her shadow. They realized their shadows are aspects of themselves that were created for this exact this fight, this battle. So the shadows weren't needing to be afraid of anymore. You weren't needing to rebuke her anymore. You weren't needing to get rid of your shadows anymore. Those were the aspects of yourself that were required for just this battle. That aspect, that shadow was created in sometimes trauma. That shadow was created in fear. And that shadow, listen to the song what's his name? Oh gosh, you know when I'm so excited, what's that song? By Bob Marley, when he says, "My fear is my only motivation." Listen to what he said. It's one line in a song. He says, "My fear is my only motivation." We rebuke our shadows and then we kick it to the side and we say, "We don't want you, wounded warrior," as you remind us of the hurt and the pain. But you don't realize that shadow that you're supposed to incorporate, that warrioress, that wounded one, is the one that could battle. If I've ever seen fights, some people have never been in a fight before. I come from New York, so I've seen enough fights between girls and boys. And one thing I noticed is that one thing they always used to notice is that the one who was most afraid would always win the fight, because in that fear, they would go balls to the wall because fear was their only motivation. They didn't have that ego or that, "Oh, I've won 50 times before, so I don't really have, I just got to do what I do." No, fear is the motivation. These warrioresses weren't wounded. They were utilizing the shadow aspects of themselves to battle against those who were lacking in empathy and those who were outside of the perimeters of humanity, those who weren't the representation of divinity. They battled. It was absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. No Woman, No Cry. That's it, right? No Woman, No Cry by Bob Marley. You got to listen to the song. "My fear is my only motivation." It's absolutely on point. So you see the warrioresses stand. I want that picture and I want to put it on my daughter's wall. Them standing together in unity conscious. Every woman standing together in battle with her divine males who had her back. So I love that. They went in. They were able to get to the Tesseract. I call it the Tesseract, to the time travel machine. They had to do an old-fashioned hot wire the truck. It was a battle. It was amazing. Your heart was going. And then they get to it and then realize, "Oh my gosh, how are we going to do this?" Because the glove was trying to be taken by every being. They were battling for the glove. And eventually Iron Man put it on. Okay. Iron Man put it on his hand. Okay. There wasn't a thought to it. He did the ultimate sacrifice because he didn't have. Now, remember what Iron Man represents, because what is his archetype? He is the wealthy billionaire who's highly intelligent, who was conceived through the project Pegasus by his father, who was part of the governmental constituency, right? Constituency, is that the word? Okay. His father was one of the governmental agents, right? Who was working on this project Pegasus, right? His father, he came from the heightened intelligence, right? He was a representation of the wealthy elite. The wealthy elite, he's a rogue version of it, but I'm saying his archetype comes from the wealthiest family, has multitude of money. That's why he was able to create the machinery for his outfit, right? He represents the private governmental system, those who have privileged intel and intelligence to be able to work these dark ops programs, right? He represented that, just like Thor. Now, listen, family, you got to understand what the killing is and the death of his archetype is. We love Iron Man, but that's a rogue version. But his archetype, who he represents, died. He sacrificed himself for the upliftment of humanity, not the AI. But in him doing so, he basically saved humanity. And it was the death of that archetype, the death of a system of the dark ones, the death of those who are so wealthy and egregious, who utilize all their wealth and all their paralysis to oversee and dominate humanity. He sacrificed himself, the child of that type of background. That in itself was amazing. It also tells you the death of certain things. And we're going to talk about that. Okay. Thank you, Joy. Oliver's out of control. I don't know what Oliver's saying. Probably said a lot of craziness. Okay. Okay, so we have a couple deaths. Okay, so we have the death of the Black Widow, the spy. Okay, the spy, the Russian spy. Okay, there's a couple things here because we love the characters, but we have to know what the characters represent. Okay, we gotta talk about what the characters represent. Black Widow, who died, who was sacrificed, represents an aspect of the detached Russian spy, the one who's being used covertly in society to spy on people and to basically bring intel to those who are not in alignment with us. Now, mind you, she herself is rogue, meaning that she's not part of that anymore, but that's what she represents. So when we talk about things, we can't be in love with the character. We got to also understand what they represent. So she is dead, and that aspect of a dead Russian spy is dead. An aspect of those spies in society who are basically getting intel to allow for someone else to have a foot up in order to incept society. Okay, she dies. So the spy dies. That aspect of those spies that are here to do dirt to our society is dead. Okay, Thor, who was the archetype of the warrior, the colonized being who was able to go and dominate worlds. He was the representation of a god who dominated over society with his paralysis and his power with his iron fist, right? The iron fist also represents Russia again. You got to watch these things. I know he had an hammer, but it's still iron fist in itself, symbolically. I take it as that he represented God, right? A God force who had domination over society based on his paralysis, and he was able to call forth thunder and lightning. He was that. Okay, he fell off based on he was only fed through the attention or the affections of society. He was not able to thrive. So it meant that he wasn't everything that you thought, because if he was, he didn't require anything out of himself to hold that paralysis. So that itself is a breaking down of the God complex, breaking down of the Christian and the religious sects who hold this holier than thou position. So basically breaking down the church aspect or the beings that are representing religious. I say in itself, just because he's represented by God, you can say he's also represented death to the ego, representing the force of religion that is stoic and is holding its holy hand over everyone, basically representing something. But if it isn't given or fed, it won't have as much power. And when it doesn't have power, then you see it raw for what it is. And it's imperfect. It's imperfect because it isn't real. Okay, it isn't a real aspect of who people are. Everyone's flawed. Everyone has shadows. Everyone has ups and downs. Okay, so Thor is an archetype of perfected, formulated concept of God. Okay, so he died. He didn't die, but he was shown, like the flashlight was shown, so he was revealed. Okay, that's a death in itself because it's a death of the ego. Okay, his reveal was was basically showing, revealing the hypocrisy or just the reality that he wasn't truly a god. He was just a man who had God abilities, who was gifted with God abilities, but he was a man who was basically playing a god. Okay. Then you had the aspect of Iron Man, which we just discussed, the governmental, someone who was basically birthed by the government, right? His father was head of a program in the Pegasus, right? So here he is, head, most intelligent, the richest man on earth, has the ability to create outfits to make himself a superhero, but he was just a man in a suit. He wasn't that man. His mind was master, but his physicality wasn't. And it's a death of that concept of, again, transhumanism, which is AI in itself, but a sacrifice of a man who was utilizing AI technology to be able to match that of the gods, the natural superheroes on earth. Okay. The elite, he represents the elite. Okay. Death to the elite. And then we have a beautiful ending. Okay. We have the beautiful Valkyr, who was riding on Pegasus. It's important, family, because this goes into how I'm going to end this video. Okay. Valkyr was it Valkyr? Valkyr, who's at the end talking with Thor, looking over Asgard, right? They're standing on a hill looking over Asgard. And Thor is telling her, because Thor is now defeated. He isn't that God anymore. He realizes he isn't God anymore. And now he passes the torch. He passes the torch to this melanated queen, who he gives her he passes the torch to the feminine, says, you will be the queen of this. You now will take the power. So now this woman who was part of Asgard, that was a friend, is party to this God, right? Who's no longer has God status. He has humbled himself and he has passed the torch to one who he knows has the capability, this beautiful Vaskar, who is now going to take on the status quo. He reigns her, he passes the torch, and he not reigns her, he gives her the status as queen. So now you have this queen who was riding on Pegasus, this time travel, and now she's being given past the torch by the almighty fallen god, Thor, and now she'll be ruling. And the one thing I thought was cute that she said, I'm going to make a lot of changes. This is a sisterhood, family. This is important. This is a sisterhood. The torch was passed to the sisterhood. And she said, there's a lot of things that'll be changing. He says, I look forward to seeing them. Meaning that the God that had fallen had trust that the sisterhood could take on the job and do an efficient and even a better job than even he could. Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. So I think I got a lot of gems in there. I hope I did okay. You know, sometimes when I do the movies, I do. Hey, Cookie Wooka. Okay. We'll do that. So, Oliver is still being blocked. Oliver, you shouldn't be on here. Why are you on here, Oliver? What are you up here to start? What are you upset that the sisterhood took over? Listen, I really enjoyed Captain America. Okay, so wait, we can't end there. Okay, Captain America passing the torch also. Oh, wait, yes, family. So Valkor gets the torch passed as being the queen, okay, the reign queen. But at the end, Captain America, the representation of America, because remember, Captain America, they were going back in time to replace all the stones, to send them back to where they were. The rainbow goes back into placement where the stones are put in safe hands previous to ever being incepted. Okay, so that's done. So Captain America was supposed to come back. Remember, they said, like, you can go as long as you want, but you'll be back in 5 seconds. He didn't come back. So then they turn and they look on a seat and they see a man, an elderly man, sitting on the chair, right? Sitting on the chair. Thank you for the reminder, because I forgot about that. Sitting on the chair. And who do they see? An older version. He's so handsome. Captain America, I have to, like I said, I didn't notice, because my only true crush on the show was always going to be, it wasn't Black Panther, but it was the Wolfman. And what was his name? The other guy who was part of the other kingdom. He's my cup of tea. I forgot his name. And Black Panther, he was part of the other kingdom. They fought and he lost. He was like the wolf. Like he had a wolf or a bear? Oh, he was Wolverine. No, it wasn't Wolverine. What was the other guy? What was his name? It was in Black Panther. Was it M'Baka? It was a gorilla, right? Yeah, it was a gorilla. He had furs. It was like up in the cold. Oh, he's so my cup of tea. Oh M'Baka. Oh, yes. He wasn't in this. I have a thing for him. Yeah. He was like, I don't really get it. I like war, as you see, I like strong alpha types. I love M'Baka. Ooh, he was like he was my cup of tea. Yeah. Everybody thought it was Black Panther. Black Panther's good looking and everything, but he's not my cup of tea. M'Baka, I wanted to be his queen. I wanted him to put one of those coats on me and just ravish me, and I give birth to like his whole kingdom. Forgive me, it's my fast, and I'm fasting from sex too, so I'm sorry. Anyway, anyway, so at the end, you see Captain America come. They go to the chair, and he's sitting as an older man, and you had the Black Panther approach him and said, you know, they taught him. He said, you know, he had a good life, and they saw a wedding ring. I thought it was beautiful, and he fell in love, and that's why he stayed there. I love that aspect of him staying, and he had a real life, because being a superhero, you know, there's no fun in games when you always fighting evil. So, you know, he had done that, but he passed his shield. Now, remember, the torch was passed to Valkyr, but the shield was passed to Black Panther. That was interesting. So you got a passing over of the power of these stoic structures of the previous system that have now fallen away because they're archaic. They didn't serve humanity. What served humanity is what served humanity was unity consciousness, the fielding together of all beings together without one holding paralysis or holding power or privilege over another. That's what brought the divine unity consciousness online and allowed for it to thrive. So seeing that they passed the torch to those who were considered to be the meek or the less desirable of society in previous, you know, Valkyr is a woman of color, you know, Thor passed it to a woman of color, just a nod. She was strong, she was powerful, but she wasn't considered to be anything threatening or anything that was part of the power structure system. Then Captain America passed it to Black Panther from Wakanda. That's a big deal because Captain America represents American principles and values, passing the shield, saying, you, Black Panther, are here to protect humanity. You are going to, I'm passing this responsibility on to you. Beautiful, beautiful movie. Anyway, so I hope everyone gets a chance to see the movie. I loved the movie. I even loved, listen, if you don't get a chance, I would say go check out Captain Marvel first. Captain Marvel first was amazing. I think it's very empowering for women to see that movie. If you didn't see Us, I'm going to go see Gemini Man probably this week or weekend. So I can give you an idea of what I think of. Oh, I'm sorry. My bad. Oh, I'm sorry. It wasn't Black Panther. My bad. It was Falcon. I'm sorry. My bad. I was wrong. I retract that. It was Falcon. Falcon was who Captain America passed the shield to, his shield, his classic, you know, his classic shield to. I'm sorry, it was Falcon. So Falcon itself, oh gosh, that's another representation of flying above, you know, watching, being the watcher of everything, the Falcon. So pass it to Falcon, which is very interesting in itself, because Falcon is a very mystical and a very revered bird in many of the indigenous culture and many of the indigenous tribes. So Captain America didn't die. He didn't. He just grew old. He allowed himself to grow old. He fell in love and decided to have a real life. And he didn't return through the everyone say Mubaka. Woo! I know. Mubaka is my cup of tea. Woo. If you want to know, I told you I mate like a Klingon. I love strong warriors. I only would mate with a strong warrior. Mubaka got me. I didn't care that he lost it. I didn't care that he lost with Black Panther. I cared that he even stepped to Black Panther. That to me was some balls. Like if a man listened to Man Ape, that's right. That I like him. He had the balls enough to step to a king. And even though he lost, he got up and went back to his kingdom and still saved the day by saving the king's family. So I'm just saying, I just love this movie. It was phenomenal. The divine masculine is the only alpha man I've ever known. Absolutely, Jennifer King. Reeve, listen, our alphas, we're going to free our alphas. Because listen, us divine females are coming back online. Our sisterhood is coming back online. We were birth alphas. My goal is to bring sea stars to a pinnacle point where they're bringing back the strongest ancestors on this planet. It's why I do what I do sometimes in sharing groups and having discussions on the things that we should do for mating and making proper children and masterful children, as opposed to just mating randomly with beings that are not some beings we should be replicating with. This is what I encourage. And I think I've gotten a lot of flack for doing that, but why would I? My ancestors did that. The tribal chiefesses and the oracles told us to do that. Why would we bring back children that wouldn't be healthy or wouldn't be strong? You're supposed to bring them back. Why do you think alphas are the #1 mating material? Why do you think women will mate, 50 million women will mate with one alpha as opposed to mating with a beta? It's because it's what we're supposed to do. So, yeah, it took you 10 years to find a good one. I love it. Anyway, yeah. So I'm also embarking on after my fast, because I gotta behave myself. I can't be all feisty because it's mating season. After my fast, I'll be doing a gosh, if I get it together, I'm supposed to do a I don't know if it's a class, but I'm going to do a class on it's I don't want to call it a class, just basically in a group. I think it'll be for about 2 to 3 weeks. Basically, it's a mating class. You can hate me now, but I won't stop now. If I get called siren again, I'm gonna just wear a shirt saying siren. I'm gonna have a mating class. Talk about masterful mating. It'll be like 3 weeks. I think some of our young sea stars need some assistance. And people said, "How can you talk from the perspective?" I've had some really long-standing relationships, and part of that is because I mastered the technique of mating. I'm looking for something much more different, but I have a great healthy position where I can absolutely come from a position of sharing rather than teaching. I'll say sharing. Yeah, it's sacred. It's a combination of sacred tantra and also aspects of I'm going to share things that I've learned from my culture, which I feel like a lot of our young sea stars would really appreciate. I think culturally, I come from a beautiful, healthy sexual culture where it allows for women to be in a healthy way with men and allow men to be who they're supposed to be. It would allow men to be unapologetic about being virile and men and being strong. And it would allow for women to feel more powerful in the position of choice as opposed to choosing from a defeatist position. So I will have the class probably after my fasting. It will be 2 or 3 weeks on Patreon. And I will be able to teach healthy techniques for women to make healthy decisions on that. And I know men were requesting for me to do this. And I generally was opposed to it because a lot of men would ask me, listen, some men don't know what it is that, men have fears and wants and needs. And I always felt like men should teach men, but I will also have a series specifically just for men after that. And I will I will add some other males in there who I know are that phenomenal men that I know that are healthy to add their own take on it. So that will be in 2 to 3 weeks after my fast, after my fast, of course, because, again, I want to make sure I accomplish one thing before I jump into it. Someone said, someone called us pervs in here. Who is this? And I get a lot of flack on this, but what's interesting about that is, I think a lot of times, and this is a sidebar for anyone who's coming on here for Black Panther, is it Black Panther for, why can't I report you? Wow. Oh, thank you, dear. Thank you. Joy got you. What's interesting about that is that someone was denoting that, there's a lot of issues with people talking about age and talking about people of age talking about sex. Let me explain something. The fact of the matter is, if you've been so privileged to live past your 35 years on earth or 40 or 50, and you've gained wisdom, I think by all means, it makes you healthier and more masterful. The fact of the matter is I'm a woman who's seasoned, and why I'm grateful is because I've been allotted to be here still living when I've had people who I know die who didn't even make it to 30. So I think to learn from someone who's gained wisdom and wisdom in a way through action, not only reading books, is a testament to and something that needs to be shared. I think for the longest time, I think I only gave advice to friends or people I knew, and it was something that was always requested. And I think now it's to the point where I want to be the change I want to see on the planet. And why would I hoard information that I know is beneficial to everyone, just so you know, so others can feel like they can just get away with whatever they want to teach or to regurgitate from something they read. Listen, you could read books all day. I've read 50 million books. It doesn't make you smart, and it doesn't make you take in the information. It just takes you able to regurgitate information if you have a memory to be able to do so. The fact of the matter is, if you're researching anything, if you gained any sort of intel, you should be able to vet it out. And vetting it out allows for you to gain wisdom. Okay. So that's why I fast. You know, I wasn't going to talk about nanotechnology. I wasn't going to tell you that you were being infiltrated by AI. I was going to tell you that the food was GMO'd. I'm going to walk that walk, and I'm going to do it. So now I can say to you, listen, this is Fleur Brune. I didn't just tell you that food wasn't good for you. I didn't just say that having metals on you and things were hostile towards you. I was going to not only say it, but I would do it. So that I'm about that life. So if I talk about it, I walk about it. That's one thing you will always know with me. If I'm saying something and I vetted it out, you know that I've done the research. And not only have I done the research, I've actually walked in it and actually collected more data based on my own personal perspective with it. Okay. Which I think is just as important. I think it's amazing. So again, for the movie, it was amazing. Do check out Captain Marvel. I have to say that first. A wonderful reptilian. Is my feed working? I don't even know if the feed is working. Hold on, family. Are you guys there? I don't even see the chat moving. If you're there, I don't see you. If you're there, just, if you can see me, still put likes, because that's how I know you're there. Put likes and I'll see the likes go up. Because I don't see you on my end. Okay, I see it. Thank you. Okay. I don't see you on my end. The chat kind of stopped on it, halted on the other side. So anyway, family, check out the movie. I don't know why, you know, it's hard to see. Sometimes I'm on the laptop, so sometimes I don't know how to maneuver it. Okay, I'm not going to worry about it because I know you're still there. As long as you can talk to each other, it's okay. So again, love the movie. Captain America has a lot of, Captain Marvel has tons of reptilian intel in there. It's bomb.com. Do watch that. A lot of gems in this movie. I would love to hear all of your take on it. Do add the comments. You know, we read it. I love it because my perspective is not always the end all be all. I give you for the perspective of, yeah. My perspective is not the only one, and I love to hear all of your perspectives. And all those who are joining me for the fast, this is our 20th day. For those who are joining third, fourth day of fast, first day of fast, congratulations for those fasting. I am so proud of you. I'm so grateful that you've decided to join me on this journey. It is absolutely amazing. It's humbling. And I'll probably talk about that a little bit on IG, the fast, how I feel. My challenge, the only challenge that I mostly had, I will say to you, is the first day and last night at the movie theater. I've never listened. Last night was like pure torture. I'm being honest. It was like torture last night, being at a movie theater, not being able to snack on anything during a movie when you're fasting. But it was a testament that I have, that I'm really quite dedicated, which I'm grateful for. So, you know, that's the case. So again, you know, I'll probably talk about it on Instagram later about the fast. Again, if you have questions, I think I made a video about it. There isn't anything much about it or different. This is my 20th day. I have 10 more days of my fast, my water fast. I feel amazing. I'm grateful for that. And I will definitely give and share results with the fast as well. You know, because many people have questions. So I won't do it on this video because this is mainly has to do with the movie. Again, a couple movies you should definitely see. When you're watching this movie, let's get some homework movies. Got Back to the Future. Okay. Definitely you want to watch Butterfly Effect. Another movie to watch. You got to watch Captain Marvel. If you've seen this movie, you've got to watch what's the other one? Oh goodness, because I can't see any feed in there. There's a couple. Oh, of course, Doctor Who is a great movie to watch because you get a lot of the terminology of the different ways of traveling, light speed, different forms of traveling, quantum mechanics, quantum physics, quantum entanglement, teleportation. You watch old Star Trek and Enterprise. These are all the movies that you can kind of get if you're having a hard time getting the concept of time travel and teleportation, these are movies that kind of drive that home. They talk about it a lot, and more gems are shared in those movies than we were even capable of really perceiving or being able to take in and feel in as far as intel, because our minds couldn't even expand, more limited, I think, to a certain degree back then. Check it out. So I hope I did okay with this. I try to do my best when I do reviews. It's from my own perspective. I really appreciated the movie. It was amazing. It was worth waiting online to see. And a lot of people say, well, there's mind control in movies. There's mind control in everything. There's mind control in me using this laptop. There's mind control in me talking to people daily who talk about church or talk about just eating hamburgers all day. There's mind control everywhere. I think, if you know better, you do better. If you have a heightened sense of a self-awareness, you're less infiltratable. If you're not eating GMO foods all day, you're less infiltratable. So being fearful of trying to avoid every single thing that will disallow mind control, you will basically be depressed and end up being bipolar by doing so. I say you bulk yourself up, you gain more self-awareness and wisdom within your own biology, your own body. Start learning about yourself, start eating in the way that's healthy and resourceful for you, coming from an ancestral base. And I think there isn't anything to fear but fear itself. And if you take advantage of what we've been taught, sometimes you need fear as your motivation. Sometimes you need to hear something a little scary to get you off your butt. All right. So I'm gone, family. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful Saturday. I'm going to go. Normally I would say I would go eat, but I'm going to go drink. I'm going to have my liter of water, because I haven't drank during this feed, because I have you on the floor because my battery was low on my laptop. So anyway, I love you. Have a wonderful day. If you haven't seen the movie yet, enjoy. Take more notes. Share some more if you feel like it's coming from another perspective. I love it, because some people are coming from totally different perspectives than I. Your eye is just as credible as mine. Just your perspective is yours, and that's what makes everyone unique. So I look forward to hearing it. So I love you, family. Have a wonderful, masterful day, and peace. Oh, peace.